During a family while reading, my husband's face lit up when he heard, "You'll inherit the restaurant." My aunt spoke up, "You should tell her how you plan to change the name and fire her brother." I turned to him and said, "Funny. That's not how partnerships work." My name's Dana Fields. I'm 47. I've lived in Asheville, North Carolina nearly my whole life, aside from a few years in Charleston after college. That's where I met my husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, actually, but we'll get to that. Right now, I want to tell you about a moment that split my life in two, before and after. Before, I was the daughter of a proud Southern family who ran one of the oldest restaurants in Asheville. I had a husband who worked beside me, a brother I fought with but loved, a legacy I was trying to protect, and this comforting illusion that life was more or less under control. After I learned that people you trust most can hold knives behind their backs, and sometimes the worst betrayal isn't loud. It's quiet, planned, professional, smiling. It started on a gray morning in March, the kind where everything feels damp and heavy, like the sky is pressing down on your shoulders. I was in the back kitchen at Fields and Fork, our family's restaurant, slicing onions and listening to Davis cuss at the walk-in freezer again. Davis is my younger brother by 6 years. He's rough around the edges, big-hearted, loyal as HLL, and a bit of a mess. But he could cook circles around most chefs. He wasn't just a line cook, he was the food at Fields and Fork. Dad passed him the smoker, the family recipes, and this unspoken pride. I took care of the business and front of house. Davis handled the kitchen. And Marcus did what Marcus always did, talked big, shook hands with investors, looked sharp in meetings. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. Dana Fields, the voice said. Female, professional. Speaking. This is Natalie from Cooper and Tate Law. We're finalizing the reading of your father's will. It'll be Saturday at 11. The family's all been notified. My hand tightened around the edge of the counter. Okay, thanks. I hung up. My chest felt tight. I hadn't been back to Dad's lawyer's office since I was maybe 23 and getting my name added to the restaurant's ownership papers. That was before Mom passed. Before things got complicated. I wiped my hands on a towel and turned. Marcus was leaning in the doorway, arms crossed, smiling like he'd just heard we won something. "Well, reading?" he asked. "Saturday morning." "Good," he said quickly. Almost too quickly. I didn't say anything. Just watched his face. There was something off. You know that feeling when someone's too calm? That's what it was. He looked like a kid who knew what present he was getting for Christmas and was just pretending to act surprised. Let me back up a little. Marcus and I met when I was 30. I was visiting friends in Charleston, drinking too much wine on a rooftop bar, when this man in a linen shirt and boat shoes offered me a refill and asked me where I was from. He was smooth, confident. Said he worked in restaurant consulting, which at the time sounded sexier than it actually is. We clicked fast. Maybe too fast. By 6 months, we were talking rings. By 9, I was back in Asheville, standing under a magnolia tree in my mother's old wedding dress, saying, "I do." Dad offered us both jobs at the restaurant. Marcus handled marketing, expansion ideas, suppliers, menus, all the future stuff. I handled the books, the staff, and the traditions. It worked. For a while. But Marcus always wanted more. He used words like scalability and brand potential. I used words like family and loyalty. Sometimes we were on the same page. Other times, not even the same book. Still, I thought we were partners. In life, in love, in the restaurant. I was wrong. Saturday came fast. I wore one of Dad's old flannel shirts under my coat. Don't know why, I think I just wanted a piece of him with me. Marcus wore a crisp blazer, his Rolex peeking out, like he was walking into a board meeting instead of the aftermath of a funeral. The room at Cooper and Tate was small. Mahogany everything. Bookshelves full of dusty volumes. Margaret, Dad's older sister, sat near the front, thumbing through a worn leather Bible. Her son Neil was beside her, scrolling through his phone. Davis slouched next to me, chewing gum and looking like he hadn't slept. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Thank you all for coming." Mr. Fields left clear instructions for how his estate should be divided. I barely heard the first part. The cabin went to Davis and me. A savings account for the grandkids. A donation to the local food bank. The usual. Then, to my daughter Dana and her husband Marcus Fields, I leave the full ownership of Fields and Fork, to be held in equal shares. Marcus sat up. I mean, he was already straight-backed, but now he was practically glowing. Like someone handed him a gold ticket to run wild. My stomach dropped. I thought I'd be getting it all. Not because I'm greedy, but because I'm the one who stayed. Davis and I ran that place. Marcus came and went like a guest with an executive title. Then came the moment that shattered it all. Margaret leaned forward and said, almost casually, you should tell her how you plan to change the name and fire her brother. The room went still. What? I asked. My voice was sharp, too sharp, like it didn't belong to me. Marcus blinked. His smile didn't fall right away. It twitched, just a little. Margaret, he said carefully, I think there's been a misunderstanding. She cut him off. Oh, don't you dare. I heard it straight from Claire Whitmore. Her husband was in on your little pitch to those investors in Charlotte. You called it fork and flame. Said it was a fresh take on Southern cuisine, minus the baggage. I assume Davis is the baggage. I looked at him. Tell me that's not true. Marcus straightened his tie. I was exploring options. For growth. We've been stagnant for years. Options that didn't include my brother? Or me. Dana, be reasonable. This was about the future. Branding. Investors want a clean slate. You have to think beyond family? Beyond what this place means. He opened his mouth again, but I beat him to it. Funny, I said, cold as ice. That's not how partnerships work. We didn't speak on the ride home. Not even when I asked him, point blank, if he'd actually gone behind my back to rebrand the restaurant before my father was even cold in the ground. He didn't deny it. Didn't even look ashamed. I was planning for the next chapter, he said. I stared at him. Then I hope you enjoy writing it alone. Marcus didn't move out right away. Of course he didn't. He stayed in the house like nothing happened. Came home late some nights, cooked eggs like normal in the mornings, acted like we were having a bump in the road, not a full-blown betrayal. The worst part? He was calm. Detached. That fake kind of patience that's actually just arrogance dressed up in a collared shirt. Like he was just waiting for me to cool down and get over it. I didn't yell. I didn't throw plates. I didn't give him the satisfaction. Instead, I got to work. Davis and I sat out back behind the smoker the next evening, a couple of lawn chairs dragged out onto the cracked concrete, a six-pack between us. He looked at me sideways. So, what now? I lit a cigarette. I hadn't smoked in years, but that day I wanted the burn in my lungs more than I wanted to be good. He's not getting it, I said finally. He doesn't care about this place. Just wants to turn it into something shiny and sellable. Davis cracked open a beer. You gonna fight him? I looked at him. You in? You serious? I nodded. He didn't answer right away. Just looked out past the fence, where the city buzzed faintly under the Carolina sky. Then he said, I got your back, sis. Always. That was all I needed to hear. I started digging through everything: contracts, the LLC structure, vendor agreements, email threads. I called our attorney. Thank God Dad had enough foresight to write the will the way he did. Marcus and I each had 50%, meaning no unilateral decisions unless we both agreed. He couldn't fire Davis. He couldn't change the name. Couldn't sell it out from under me. But it also meant I couldn't do any of that without him, either. We were locked in a standoff. 2 weeks later, Marcus called a strategy meeting with the management staff. Didn't even tell me until the morning of. Thought you might want to sit in, he said over coffee, casual like he hadn't just tried to gut my family's legacy behind my back. I showed up, sat in the corner of the back office, arms crossed. Marcus stood like he was on a TED Talk stage, hands clasped, grinning that fake-ass grin that used to charm everyone in the room. Not anymore. All right, he began, we're in a transition phase. And transition means opportunity. Rebranding is one of the directions we're exploring. No, I said, loudly enough to cut him off. The room went quiet. I stood up. There's no rebranding. We're Fields and Fork. That name means something around here. Marcus tried to speak, but I held up a hand. Let me be clear. You all deserve to know what's happening. My husband, I looked right at him, has been working behind the scenes to sell the restaurant's brand to investors in Charlotte. He had no intention of keeping this team, or even my brother, on board. Gasps. Side glances. One of the waitresses, Hannah, looked like she might cry. He didn't just want to grow the business. He wanted to erase it. Start over without the people who made it what it is. I looked at Davis, then back at the room. But I'm not letting that happen. Marcus's face hardened, but he didn't say a word. Just stood there, that grin slipping into something more like a sneer. I'll make it simple, I said. I'm buying him out. Now that got a reaction. Wait, what? Marcus barked. You don't have the capital to watch me. I didn't. Not yet. But I had something better. The loyalty of everyone in that room. That night, I called Mom's old friend Gloria, retired accountant, always had a stash of secrets and favors. She gave me the name of someone in Charlotte who specialized in silent partners and family business financing. I met with him 2 days later at a little cafe off Marymount Avenue. A guy named Victor, mid-60s, tough, soft-spoken, used to run a chain of barbecue joints before cashing out. I laid it all out for him. The betrayal. The legacy. The fight I was about to step into. Victor sipped his tea, looked me in the eyes, and said, "You got grit. And I don't trust men like your husband." I blinked. "Let's talk numbers," he said. Back at the restaurant, Marcus was still playing the long game. He'd started whining and dining some of the front-of-house staff. Private meetings. Promises of raises. Future franchise manager roles. I knew exactly what he was doing, poaching loyalty. So I did the opposite. I sat down with every single employee, one-on-one, over coffee or lunch or a quiet 15 minutes between shifts. I told them the truth. I asked them what they wanted from the restaurant, what it meant to them. Turns out, most of them weren't there for the money. They were there for Davis. For me. For Dad. The staff backed me. The regulars backed me. Even Margaret, who never liked to get involved, started whispering to people at her church, her bridge club, her volunteer circles. Marcus didn't stand a chance. But he kept trying. He filed a motion with the attorney to force Davis out, for cause. Claimed he'd violated health protocols and cost us revenue. The moment I got the notice, I laughed. Then I walked into the office and slammed it on the desk in front of Marcus. "You think you're slick, don't you?" He looked up from his laptop. "It's not personal. You want to play corporate chess? Fine. Just know I've been watching your game longer than you realize." I pulled out a printed copy of his pitch deck. Fork and Flame, a modern Southern rebrand. "Recognize this?" His jaw tensed. "It's got your name, dates, investor signatures, emails, before Dad even passed. You planned this with or without me." He didn't say anything. "Here's what's gonna happen," I continued, calm as ever. "You're going to take the buyout I offer. Or you can watch me drag every dirty little business move into the light and burn your name with it." He stared at me for a long moment. And then he said, "You never had the guts for this kind of fight." I leaned in. "You clearly never knew me at all." After that conversation in the office, something shifted between Marcus and me. Not that there was much left to shift. We barely spoke at home. He still slept in our bedroom, and I moved into the guest room, which felt more like my space anyway. He'd leave early in the morning, spend most of his day working remotely, and come back late, sometimes smelling like expensive whiskey and cologne I didn't recognize. I didn't ask where he'd been. I didn't need to. He wasn't hiding it anymore. Not the meetings. Not the looks he gave me when I walked into a room like I was some obstacle he had to tolerate. He'd changed. Or maybe I just finally saw who he'd been all along. One Tuesday afternoon, I found myself standing in the middle of the dining room after lunch rush, the place still humming from the energy of the day. Plates clinking, the smell of smoked pork in the air, laughter echoing from the kitchen. Davis was telling some ridiculous story in the back, and I could hear Hannah snort laughing at something inappropriate. It hit me all at once. This place, it wasn't just a business. It was a living, breathing part of my family. Of me. I'd learned to walk in this building. Learned to braid my hair sitting at the bar. I'd fallen asleep in a booth after my first double shift, wearing a dirty apron and smelling like grease and onions, and my dad had carried me out to the truck, wrapped in a tablecloth like a blanket. Marcus didn't understand that. Couldn't. And now he wanted to gut it and serve the bones on a fancy plate. Not on my watch. Victor came through with the financing. It wasn't easy. I had to put up the lake cabin as collateral, plus a personal lien against the house, something I didn't tell Marcus right away. I'd already made peace with what I had to risk. It was mine or it wasn't. No halfway. The offer was clean. I'd buy Marcus out for a fair market rate, plus a small goodwill premium. Enough for him to walk away with money in his pocket and zero claim to the business moving forward. I even included a non-compete clause to keep him from opening a similar concept within 100 miles. Marcus read the offer in silence. We were sitting at the kitchen table. He had a bourbon in one hand, the contract in the other. His face didn't move, but his fingers twitched just enough for me to notice. He finally looked up. "This is insulting." "No," I said, "this is generous. You don't belong here, Marcus. You never did. You came into this family business thinking it was your golden ticket. You married me, and you thought that gave you ownership. You thought you could remake everything in your image." He opened his mouth to argue, but I kept going. "But this place isn't about image. It's about people. It's about soul. And you don't have it. You never had it. You want a sleek, marketable brand? Go build one. But not on the back of my family's legacy." He leaned back slowly, eyeing me like I'd grown horns. "You're not the woman I married." I nodded. Thank God for that. The divorce papers came a week later. Filed quietly. No dramatic scene. Just a beige envelope on the kitchen counter, next to a coffee cup I hadn't used in months. I didn't cry. Didn't throw anything. Didn't even call him. Instead, I called Davis. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, what's up?" "He filed," I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. There was a pause. "You okay?" "I think so. You want me to come over?" I looked around the house, at the shell of what used to be a home. "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, I do." Davis showed up 20 minutes later with a bottle of wine and a six-pack of something dark and local. He dropped onto the couch next to me, kicked his boots off, and passed me the wine. "You know," he said, twisting the bottle open with a pocket like some kind of Appalachian sommelier, "I've always hated the guy." I gave him a tired smile. "You were polite enough." He grunted. For Dad. That name hung heavy between us. I hadn't said it out loud much lately. Too raw. "You think he knew?" I asked. "About what Marcus was planning?" Davis looked at the floor for a moment, then back at me. "Yeah, I do. I think he saw through him. He didn't say much, but remember how he made you sign those revised partnership papers last year?" I nodded slowly. "He said it was just to streamline taxes." "He was protecting you," Davis said. "He knew what was coming." I swallowed hard. The thing about grief is, it doesn't come all at once. It waits. It finds quiet moments, open wounds. Then it hits you like a goddamn truck. I didn't cry the day we buried Dad. Not really. But that night, sitting next to Davis with wine in my hand and an empty house behind me, I did. Soft at first. Then harder. He didn't say anything. Just let me cry. Didn't hug me. Didn't give me a tissue. Just sat there and let me be messy, which was exactly what I needed. When I finally stopped, I wiped my face with my sleeve and said, "I'm gonna save this place, Davis. I don't care what it takes." He nodded. "I know." The next few weeks were a blur. Marcus didn't leave the house right away, but he started disappearing more. He said he was staying with a friend some nights, some rich guy he'd done consulting with in Charlotte. Fine by me. I started making small changes at the restaurant. Not to the name, not the food, but the stuff that mattered. New benefits for the staff. Paid time off. Better scheduling. I redid the training handbook with Davis. We even brought in a pastry chef, young, talented, and eager to learn Dad's recipes. Word got out. Not about Marcus. Not the scandal. Just the good stuff. People started coming in more. The lunch crowd grew. Lines on Saturdays. Local news ran a piece on us, family business revitalized after loss. They quoted Davis saying, "We're just doing what Dad would have wanted." Marcus saw the article. I know he did, because he came into the restaurant the next day, suit on, fake smile locked in place. He waited until I came out of the kitchen, then said, "You're using the divorce for PR now?" I raised a brow. "You really think this is about you?" He stepped closer, dropped the smile. "You think you've won?" "No," I said softly. "I know I have." He looked around the dining room, at the people who used to nod politely at him but now avoided eye contact. Then he leaned in and said, almost a whisper, "This isn't over." I smiled. "It is for you." Marcus didn't show his face at the restaurant again after that last encounter. He didn't need to. I could feel him hovering around the edges, through emails to mutual friends, subtle inquiries with suppliers, weird little jabs in our divorce filings. He tried to delay the buyout by contesting the valuation. Claimed the restaurant was worth more than we offered. That it was his strategy and involvement that brought in most of the revenue. That I was just the sentimental one clinging to an outdated model. But what he failed to understand, even after all this time, was that this restaurant wasn't a spreadsheet. It was a story. And people fight harder for stories than they ever will for numbers. I countered his games by doubling down. We held a Fields and Fork Founders Weekend. I brought out old pictures of my parents, displayed them in the entryway. Davis dug up an old handwritten recipe book from Mom, and we made a limited menu from it. We even named one of the desserts after my dad, Jack's Whiskey Pecan Pie. People came out in droves. Old regulars. New customers. Former staff who had moved away came by just to say hi and have one last bite of something that felt like home. We ran out of food by 8 p.m. the first night. The local news covered it. One of the biggest food bloggers in the state posted about it on Instagram. The restaurant's following doubled in a week. I made sure every article, every interview, every photo caption said the same thing. Family-owned, woman-led. The heart of Asheville since 1982. Marcus was erased. Quietly, completely, and without a single word from me. That was my revenge. I met him at the attorney's office for the last signature. He wore that same navy blazer. Still trying to wear the part. Still trying to control the story. The attorney handed us both a pen. Marcus looked at the paperwork, then at me. You really think you'll be fine without me? I didn't even blink. I've already proven it. He looked at the page for a long moment, then signed. No smile. No smirk this time. As we stood up, I said, by the way, the investors you were courting? Victor knows them. I had lunch with 2 of them last week. He stiffened. What? Turns out they're no longer interested in Fork and Flame. They said if they want Southern food, they'll come straight to the source. I smiled politely. I told them we'd save them a table. Marcus moved to Charlotte 2 weeks later. Last I heard, he was trying to start a modern American bistro with some startup money from a tech guy. I didn't follow up. I didn't need to. People like Marcus spend their whole lives chasing the next thing. He'll probably charm some other woman into believing he's her golden ticket. She'll find out too late. Not my problem anymore. 3 months after the buyout, Davis and I stood outside the restaurant one night, just locking up. He leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. You know, he said, this place feels lighter. I nodded. It is lighter. Think Dad would have approved? I looked up at the sky. It was clear, stars scattered across it like powdered sugar on a shortcake. Yeah, I said. He would have liked what we're building. And we're building. We expanded the outdoor seating with a little garden, added a brunch service, and trained our staff on the family history so they could tell guests the real story of Fields and Fork. Every dish had a name that tied back to someone in our family. Customers loved it. The community kept showing up. Not for Marcus's polished brand or sleek interiors, but for the food, the people, the roots. One evening, a woman in her 50s came in and said, I remember eating here with my parents when I was a little girl. It's amazing how it still feels the same. I smiled. That's what we're going for. You see, revenge doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be cruel. Sometimes, the best revenge is outliving the betrayal. Thriving in spite of it. Taking what someone tried to hollow out and filling it with purpose. Marcus thought he could outsmart me. He didn't count on me remembering who I was. And he definitely didn't count on me being stronger without him. So now, when I walk into Fields and Fork in the morning, keys in my hand, and the scent of cinnamon rolls wafting from the kitchen, I don't just see a restaurant. I see a victory. A quiet, southern, satisfying one. And every time someone compliments the food or says, this place has soul, I just smile and say, funny. That's how partnerships should work.